Assalamualaikum, nama saya Nur Ain Amira binti Imran. Nombor matriks ES10509. Untuk bahagian saya akan terangkan tentang the ovaries, uterus and vagina.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Najib bin Zamri, AS10801. Today, I would like to present my part which is about female orgasm.
Assalamualaikum and greetings. My name is Nurul Shahira binti Muhammad Syukur and my matrix number is AS10513, and my part for today's presentation is about the uterine cycle.
Okay, thank you Shahira. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Yani Syahmi bin Muhammad Zubir, AS10519, and today I am from group 8 and I'm gonna present about fertilization and female breast.
Okay, sekarang saya akan terangkan tentang the ovaries, uterus and vagina. Okay, first kita mulakan dengan external genital organ of female. External genital organ ni dia dikenali sebagai vulva yang terdiri daripada 5 organ, iaitu mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, Bartholin glands and clitoris. First adalah labia majora. Ciri-ciri dia adalah agak besar dan merupakan lipatan tisu. Function dia adalah untuk melindungi external organ yang lain. External genital organ yang lain. Okay, next adalah labia minora. Labia minora ni they lie just inside the labia majora and it surround the openings to the vagina and urethra. Okay, next adalah Bartholin glands, di mana dia akan secrete a thick fluid and keep the vulva moist. Okay, last adalah clitoris. Location clitoris ni adalah antara labia minora dan clitoris ni adalah organ yang paling sensitif. Next, saya akan terang tentang internal genital organ of female. First adalah ovary. Ovary ni dia akan produce female sex hormone and oocyte for each month. Okay, next adalah uterine tube. Uterine tube ni dikenali sebagai fallopian tube, di mana ia adalah tempat untuk sperm and egg to fertilize. Untuk pengetahuan semua, fallopian tube ni tak attach dengan ovary, tapi hujung fallopian tube ada finger-like projection, iaitu fimbriae. Fimbriae ni dia akan sweep over the ovaries untuk masuk ke fallopian tube. Okay, seterusnya adalah uterus. Uterus adalah tempat untuk embryo develop untuk jadi fetus. Dan last adalah vagina. Vagina adalah komponen of female reproductive system dan dia adalah serve as birth canal. Okay, sekarang saya akan pass kepada Muhammad Najib. Terima kasih.
Now, I will explain about oogenesis and ovulation. What is oogenesis? Oogenesis is the development and the production of an ovum. Oogenesis occurs when a follicle matured. During oogenesis, the number of chromosomes will reduce from 46 to 23. Oogenesis divided into two meiosis, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. At meiosis 1, the germ cell diploid, will undergo mitosis and become oogonium. And then the oogonium will undergo mitosis and become primary oocyte. The primary oocyte will undergo meiosis, which will divide and producing two haploid cells. The first cell is secondary oocyte. Meanwhile, the other is a polar body. After that, ovulation will occur. Ovulation is the releasing of secondary oocyte surrounded by a clear membrane when the vascular follicle bursts. After the vascular follicle has burst and the secondary oocyte has lost, it will develop a corpus luteum, which is a gland-like structure. After that, the secondary oocyte will enter a uterine tube, and if a fertilization occurs, a sperm will enter the secondary oocyte, and then the oocyte will complete the meiosis and becomes an egg. It will resulting an egg with 23 chromosomes and a second polar body result. When the sperm nucleus unites with the egg nucleus, a zygote with 46 chromosomes is produced. If zygote formation and pregnancy do not occur, the corpus luteum begins to degenerate after about 10 days. Next, I will explain about the hormonal control of ovaries. There are a total of 5 hormones that are involved in control of ovaries. Firstly, it was the gonotropic releasing hormone, which is GnRH. It was a hormone which are produced by the hypothalamus. Its function is to stimulate anterior pituitary to produce hormone, which is FSH and LH. Next, follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. It is a hormone that produced by the anterior pituitary. Its function is to stimulate the follicle to produce estrogen. And next is also a hormone that is produced by the anterior pituitary, which is luteinizing hormone. It stimulates the corpus luteum to produce primarily progesterone. And lastly, estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone functioning in maintaining the sex organs, for example uterus, and the secondary sex characteristic. They also exert feedback control over the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary. So now I will explain about the feedback control. The feedback control can be seen when the level of estrogen in the blood becomes very high. It will exert a positive feedback on the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary. The hypothalamus is stimulated and will suddenly secrete a large amount of GnRH. This leads to a surge of LH and to a lesser degree of FSH by the anterior pituitary. Now, I will pass my presentation to Shahira.
Next, the uterine cycle. Alright, before we begin, I would like to talk about the differences of characteristics between premenstrual syndrome or PMS, menstrual cycle, menarche and menopause. When a woman is having premenstrual syndrome or PMS, she will experience from breast enlargement and tenderness, headache and irritability. During menstrual cycle, Arteries constrict and capillaries weaken. Mucus, blood and degenerating endometrium descends from the uterus. If you ever wondered why the blood that descends from the uterus doesn't clot, it is because they have fibrinolysin. Fibrinolysin basically prevents the blood from clotting. Next, we will look up at menarche. Menarche is basically by the age of 11 to 13, it symbolizes that the ovarian and uterine cycle has begun. This is basically the first period. But if a woman didn't have a menarche by the age of 16 years old or 6 months without pregnancy, this situation is likely to be called as amenorrhea. Last but not least is menopause. Menopause is the termination of cycle due to normal aging of ovaries. At this point, a woman will no longer undergo menstruation. Now, let's look at the menstrual cycle graph. I will be dividing this graph into 4 parts for my presentation, which are menstrual phase, proliferative phase, ovulation phase, and secretory phase. Firstly, the menstrual phase. The menstrual phase usually occurs from day 1 to day 5. This is the graph for day 1 to day 5, and I'll explain the events occurs during this period. During this period, the level of female sex hormone, which are progesterone and estrogen, are low. As a result, endometrium wall disintegrate and the blood vessel rupture. Therefore, menstruation will take place. About this time, follicle stimulating hormone or FSH level increases slightly, which will stimulate the development of follicles in the ovaries. Each follicle contains one egg. Later in this phase, as the FSH level decreases, only one follicle will continue to develop. Next, from day 6 to day 13 is the proliferative phase. This is the graph for proliferative phase. And as mentioned, the level of follicle stimulating hormone decreases. The follicle that is produced from the FSH just now will increase the production of estrogen in the body. The estrogen causes the endometrium wall to be thickened, become more vascular and glandular. The high level of estrogen produced will stimulate gonadotrophin releasing hormone, or known as GnRH, which in return stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete luteinizing hormone. About day 12, the level of LH increases and the level of FSH increases slightly, which causes the egg to be released from the follicle. On the day 14, it is usually called as the ovulation phase. This is because the matured egg that was released from the follicle as a result of surge in FSH and LH over the previous day. Later on, the matured follicle changes into corpus luteum. The last stage is called as secretory phase. The secretory phase takes place from day 15 to day 28. The level of FSH and LH decreases in the body. The corpus luteum will then produces progesterone. The level of progesterone will increase. The progesterone will make sure the endometrium wall is double in thickness, uterine glands to mature, and producing a thick mucoid secretion ready for implantation. So what happens next? We have two possibilities where the fertilization takes place or no fertilization. If fertilization takes place, corpus luteum maintains size for 3 months. Later, the function is taken over by placenta. Whereas, if there is no fertilization, corpus luteum shrinks, progesterone decreases, endometrium wall breaks down. Therefore, at the end, the menstruation cycle repeats. Thank you.
I'm going to present about fertilization and the female breast. Okay. So, what is fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion of the sperm cell nucleus to produce a zygote, which is fertilized egg. So how do a single little ovum and even tinier sperm come together to make a fertilized egg or zygote that divides and multiplies and grows into trillions of cells that make up the glorious, complex individual that is us? Remember that from before, during ovulation, about once a month, an ovary releases a secondary oocyte that heads down a fallopian tube and toward the uterus. That oocyte has time about a day or less to meet a sperm before it's no longer viable. But that being said, sperm can persist in female reproductive tract for as much 3 to 5 days, which means for fertilization to happen, they have to either be in place during ovulation or they have to arrive no more than day after. During sex, if a male ejaculates into female's vaginal canal, millions of hopeful sperm will be on their way. But the truth is, most sperm never reach an oocyte. Some go in the wrong direction, others are killed in strange new acidic environment of the vaginal canal, and millions more fail to penetrate the gauntlet of mucus that surrounds the cervix. In fact, sometimes only a dozen or so of the original millions make it through all those trials to reach an oocyte. But it's still not over for them because they can actually penetrate an oocyte. Not yet. They are unable to make a move until they are what's known as capacitated and go through one last set of change. As they swim through the hurdle, female secretions start to degrade some of the sperm's protective proteins until the cap on the tip of the sperm, called acrosome, is fragile enough it can leak special hydrolytic enzymes. Those enzymes are the key to getting through the oocyte's protective outer layers, but before that, it has to weave through the granulosa cells. To form the oocyte's outermost layer, known as corona radiate. Once it past that, it runs into the zona pellucida, a layer of glycoprotein that covers the oocyte plasma membrane. This layer has specific sperm receptors waiting for it to bind to, and when it does, it opens a bunch of calcium channels which flood the sperm with calcium ions. These ions trigger the final acrosomal reaction that releases the enzyme the sperm needs to work through the zona pellucida. When a sperm docks into one of those sperm binding receptors, membrane of the sperm fuse with the innermost membrane of the oocyte, and the contents of the sperm enter the oocyte, and this will trigger a reaction that suddenly seals the egg by destroying all the leftover sperm receptors in the membrane, preventing any other sperm from swimming in. The oocyte then quickly completes meiosis II, leaving two daughter cells, the large ovum, and a puny second polar body. Meanwhile, the sperm's detached nucleus swells up to 5 times to its original size, forming the male pronucleus, one of the two sorts of protonuclei that contain each gamete genetic information. The other one, the female pronucleus, takes shape from the nucleus of ovum, and then the two of them start to approach each other, pull along protein scaffolding or mitotic spindle between the two. When the two membranes of the two pronuclei rupture, chromosomes go flying, and officially a diploid zygote created and start to mitosis immediately. And that is how an egg fertilized. Okay, now we'll go to the female breast. First, we'll look at the structure that make up female breast, as well as some related and surrounding structures that you can see in this image here. So, in this illustration, we can see a view of the breast from the side. We can see structures such as nipple, the areola, and the milk duct, along with the mammary glands and surrounding adipose tissue. We can also see the vascular supply and the underlying muscles, such as pectoralis muscles. Once we've discussed all the structures, we'll look at some clinical notes related to the female breast. But first, let me give you an introduction to the female breast. The breasts are secondary sex characteristic of females, but also prevent in underdeveloped form in males. Then lactation is a process where milk is made and ejected from mammary glands in the female breast. But during the pregnancy, prolactin production will be suppressed, so no milk will be produced. After giving birth, yellowish white fluid called colostrum will be produced. Breast milk can boost a newborn's immune system because it contains antibodies, which is colostrum, that the baby can make on its own yet. Okay, so that's all from me and from our group. Thank you.